Hi, my name is Emma Vestesson and I'm a senior data analyst at the Health Foundation. I'm here to share some of the work we're doing about open analytics at the Health Foundation. So the Health Foundation is an independent charity committed to bringing about better health and healthcare for people in the UK. And I'm part of the data analytics team at the Health Foundation. And over the last year or so, we've done some pretty intense work around making our analysis more reproducible and open. So there are big challenges facing health and healthcare in the UK, and this was true even before COVID happened. But at the same time, we're seeing some rapid innovation in the use of analytics and data-driven tech in the health and care sector. And this carries huge potential to address some of these challenges, but it does also carry quite substantial risks if we're not careful with how it's implemented. And our aim is to ensure that data analytics has a positive impact on the UK's health. And we're working for a future where everyone's health and care benefits from analytics and data-driven technology. So how are we doing this? So we want data analytics to have a positive impact on the UK's health. And there are several ways in which we're working to achieve this. So we want to have innovations in data that tackle some of the big challenges facing the sector. But we also want to influence the national conversation and be an independent voice, an expert voice on national policy and system design. We offer funding and support for innovative work because we want to support better analytical capability. And we want to help create networks, communities and partnerships. So what does open analytics mean to us at the Health Foundation? So we're very committed to being transparent and open when doing analysis because we want people to be able to look at what we've done and ask any questions or pose any challenges. So we want to actively champion good analytical practice across the sector and spread and share what we know. So we started doing this by publishing our code on GitHub around a year ago, and last September we had kind of a mini launch of our own GitHub page. So we now make all of our analysis code public by default, even when it's work in progress, and we're working towards exclusively using only open source languages. But we don't think that sharing code is enough. So each repo on our GitHub has got a description of what the project sets out to do, information about the data source, whether or not you can access it, which you should be able to do if it's open data, and what else you need to do to reproduce our analysis, so other things you might install or packages you need. So for us, working openly is an ongoing project, and we're kind of using our own team to experiment a bit and test the new and more open ways of working, which sometimes can be a bit challenging, but we feel like we want to understand how we can work openly as a team and then start talking to other people about how to do it and advice on what they can do. So in addition to putting things on GitHub, we're also sharing what we learned along the way and how we overcame some of the barriers to working more openly. So we published a blog post on Medium where we described the process we went through as a team to launch our public GitHub account and provided kind of a step-by-step guide to how others can do the same thing. So the problems we're working on kind of are big and they really require more of a collaborative approach to actually be tackled. So, and we believe that transparency and working openly and reproducibly are essential to achieving this. And we see open coding and open data as good analytical practice. There are so many benefits of working openly. So first of all, sharing our code helps us avoid duplicating work within the team, but also allows other researchers and analysts to be able to review and validate and reuse our code. And this is something we've definitely done through COVID, where I know I use code from an analyst in Nottingham, and I know that other people have used our code. It also makes it a lot easier to share our code and our work internally, so we know what our colleagues are up to and we can celebrate progress. And it makes it a lot easier to credit people both internally and externally. I think it also openness also just makes for better science. So there's a permanent record of the analysis that we've done and it's reproducible. I think also personally, knowing that my code is going on GitHub makes me go that extra mile. because I just make sure that there are enough comments to explain what the code is doing, and I haven't left things in there that I don't want anymore. And this makes it easier for other people when they use my code, but it also makes it a lot easier for future me to go back to a project. So unsurprisingly, COVID-19 has changed the way we work at the Health Foundation. But actually, we realised that as we're all working remotely, working openly has become even more important. We have done a lot of reactive work related to the pandemic using open data, and this has allowed us to inform the national policy debate and highlight the effect of COVID on vulnerable groups such as care home residents. And you can see a few of the examples of some charts that we've created using open data at the Health Foundation. So even though it was great to use open data for this analysis, there were some challenges with using open data. And sometimes we were slightly limited in what we could do. And some of those problems were related to the data itself. So it might not have been granular enough. So we would, for example, not often be able to look at both sex and age at the same time. And sometimes the data wasn't updated as frequently as we would have liked. So we would produce some analysis, and even if when we knew that more data would bring value to the discussion, we weren't able to do that. There were also slightly more technical issues that we had. So quite often, open data isn't shared in a machine readable format, meaning that there might be multiple tables in one spreadsheet, or there will be random text in places where a computer wouldn't expect that to be text. It happened a few times that I went to a website to download a new version of a data set and it had just disappeared and it was being published somewhere else. And this, as an analyst, makes it really hard to build a good workflow because the data is just no longer there, and any work you've done to put in kind of automatic downloads for anything is gone when there's no consistency. It also obviously happened that the data changed format, which again poses a big problem for an analyst because you need to go back and check your code. But we do think that the people who are sharing data want us to use it. But especially when things are moving quickly, it's quite easy to not share data in the maybe best way. So we wrote a blog with some thoughts on how to collaborate in a time of crisis and how to share data in a time of crisis, with a focus on how to make sure that if you're sharing something that people can actually use it. So we wrote our own blog, but we also know that there's a lot of good work out there on how to share open data. So ODI Leads has got some open data tips, the Government Statistical Service has got some excellent resources, and the Turing Way, which is a slightly more academic resource, has got excellent advice on how to make your research reproducible. So a lot of the call of the action is coming from analysts to kind of improve how we do analysis, but we also think that data controllers could really, really help speed up the work and spread open working. So from a position as someone who actually does this kind of work, a lot of us use Data Managers Digital and ONS, and it would just be really, really good if, we could see some processing code, some reference data and some metadata, as this would really help us with our work, but also being able to be signposted to the other people writing code for the data that you're looking at would be really useful. So I've focused quite a lot on code and technology today, but we don't think that's enough to collaborate effectively. So based on the work that we've done internally to work more openly, but also some of the work that we do to support analysts in the sector, we have a few things that we think might be stopping people from working openly. And we think that the first thing you can do is ask yourself, why is my team not working openly? And we think that a big factor is buy-in from management. Analysts really need to feel safe sharing data, and often that needs to come from somewhere higher up to make sure that there's that support. There also needs to be support for the extra work during setup, because when you start working openly, at the beginning it is a bit of extra work, but it's really worth it, and I think in the long run you're probably saving time. But also having a community is really important. So knowing that more people are working the same way, provide some reassurance that even though it's hard, this is a good thing to do. So if you want to start working more openly, you need to acknowledge that working this way might require a culture change. So what do we do to support analysts? So I've talked a lot about the analysis that we've done, but a large chunk of the work that we do is actually focus on supporting analysts working in the health and social care sector. So far, we've funded 43 projects for 4 different rounds of something that we call Advancing Applied Analytics. And we've had a lot of workshops with these award holders. So the support doesn't stop with the funding. We have these workshops, and people can come together and troubleshoot issues that they've encountered over the course of their projects. When COVID happened, we also set up a repository of resources for analysts working to support health and care during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there we're trying to share different solutions that people have suggested that are kind of more open. So we have a few projects that we just want to highlight. So with probably the biggest one being the NHSR community, which was, I think, probably our big first investment in this area. And it's an initiative that aims to build a community of analysts in the NHS to spread the use of the R language. And through this, we know that there's interest in the system to work more openly. And we're hoping that our funding programme encourages an open approach to both sharing methodology and code. So I want to end by focusing on where we're going next and a bit of a call for action. So the last few months, we've seen some really remarkable innovation with health data, but we haven't seen the same thing in social care. And this is despite how hard the pandemic has hit the social care sector. So we're doing a few things. First of all, we're teaming up with Future Capital to do some work around social care. We really think that open analytics will play a key role in sharing the learning of these projects. And we're therefore launching a funding programme in August for projects that can address barriers to analytical capability in social care. So to watch this space, and if you think you can do some good work in this area, please join us. Thank you.